All right, I think we can get started now. Awesome. Let me see. Let me connect this. Hey, and I'm in the sky. I don't have a space like Kristen. Yeah, I couldn't get Taylor either. I think she may be busy tonight, but I wanted her to mostly share a little bit of the policy because of what's going on. You know, she's kind of keeping track of what's happening with Paxton. So I mostly wanted the tea of like the updates, really. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Honestly, it's a shame. I think we all know it's on the wall, right? That they're just gonna slap him in the wrist and he's gonna move on. But with that said, we didn't plan on who would go first, Damaris and Tony. But the intention for these meetings is really just to create a brave space in order to then get to a safe space for Native American indigenous folks here in the state of Texas. We are working within the Texas Democratic Party. Believe me, we tried with the Republican Party. They chose not to. So at the end of the day, we find this avenue here, and we believe that we first need to acknowledge the history in Texas with Native American indigenous people in order for us to then find a way to heal and repair. Our intention is to get to the Texas Democratic Party convention in 2024, in the summer of 2024, and be able to share with them our platform, our values, but most importantly, our vision for a Texas that recognizes the importance and the influence of Native American indigenous folks. We invite different speakers every meeting with our intention of just kind of harnessing community, growing this network. I know that Maris, you shared with me already a few networks that you have in the Houston area. We have a lot of folks from the DFW North Texas area, so I would love for us to keep growing and continue bringing speakers. So if you would like to be a speaker in one of these meetings or would like to invite someone, you know Martin is our event coordinator. He'll be joining us here later on. And the topic for next meeting is Pride, and the topic for the November meeting is healing. So preparing folks on the topic name, that way you can start thinking of someone you would like to invite. We do have a speaker for healing. We're still looking for speakers for Pride and another speaker for healing. And then in December, we don't have one yet, but I believe we may be going off hiatus. We do want to have our convention or our in-person gathering in January. So prepping folks for that we can start looking at your calendars. San Antonio does have a new Native American Indigenous folks museum that we hope to attend one day. And we are in connection with the Native American Studies department at UTSA. So with that, long, but I hope I gave you all some time. Damaris and Tony, wondering who would like to go first. And yeah, to introduce yourself and take it over for the next 15, 20 minutes.
Real quick, Taylor is here.
Oh, hey, Taylor, welcome in. And Gracie, we have Gracie Taylor. I don't know if I missed another one while I was speaking. I'm sorry. Yes, Taylor, earlier we were talking about Paxton, your favorite one.
My absolute favorite. Y'all know me. I do apologize for being late. I had another commitment, but happy to be here with y'all.
Awesome.
Just to introduce Taylor, she's our legislative officer.
I guess I'm as ready as I'm gonna be. So go ahead and just jump on in, Rojo.
Absolutely, Tony. Thank you so much again. Feel free to go and take ownership of it. And I will say this, for these discussions, we love when speakers start the conversation, but know that we're all here, solidarity. I forgot to mention this earlier. I apologize, folks. If you're here only to listen as an ally, because I know often, we mentioned this, but listening is an act of decolonization. I ask you to please just simply add a letter A to your name. That way, if Tony or Damaris choose to call upon maybe folks, to make this more of an interaction connection later on their talk, I ask that if you place an A on your name, they will not call on you, knowing that you're here as an ally, just listening. Thank you. And with that, I pass it to you, Tony.
Well, hello, everyone. My name's Tony. I'm with the Dallas Brown Berets. I'm also part of the Texas Coalition of Brown Berets and La Mesa Nacional. the topic is justice, right? So I kind of I'm gonna turn off my video because sometimes when I have it on, it kind of cuts off. So all right. So the topic is justice, right? I try to sit down and like, because it's not an easy word to describe or to say how your take on it or how you view it, because everybody has different, different takes on it, I guess, like I guess for us as brown berets, we try to look at things in a more historical way. So, for me, I guess a more accurate way would be to say injustice, right? So like being aware of the injustice, happening in our lives, right? Because we connect all this stuff, right? So for us, like the Chicano movement, that was us crying out for justice. I guess that's why for a lot of us that term it means indigenous, right? Like it's us kind of naming our own identity. So yeah, I had to think about it. Just so you guys know, I've been a brown beret for about 5 years. I really never expected to, talk or any of that stuff. It was all very new to me. But it was my journey personally started with this, starting doing research on the Chicano term, right? Like I always used it. I never understood why. I started doing my research, and then I started seeing the civil rights, and all that stuff inspired me, right? So I guess when I would look at that stuff, I would see the whys, right? Like, so why I would see so many you know our people in prisons or getting arrested, like why we live like this, right? Like it was something that I guess we just kind of took for granted, that poverty, the neighborhoods we grew up in, it was just the way it's always been, right? So with us understanding that history, understanding the state of injustice that we've kind of been living on, that's kind of something that we organized, to try to change conditions. Now, normally we wouldn't really vote, right? Like we're kind of a group that would be like, no, the system doesn't work and stuff like that, right? So even engaging like this is new. Sorry if I have my video, my audio kind of cuts off. I live out here in the country a little bit. But yeah, like I was saying, us organizing really was, I think, like an act of desperation, right? Like justice now type stuff, right? We wear our uniforms and that's kind of like, to me, it represents the red line, right? Like, yeah, when people, like they've had enough and stuff. So I guess right now I feel like we're in the similar times, to try to fight for like actual justice, right? Not just when we just say a name and we ask for something on that case, but really, the conditions, right? Like a lot of times I think that gets ignored. So for us, that's what justice, like, what that looks like for us is changing the conditions out here, right? Like that our people are living every day, right? Like, we still got a lot of prison, people going to prisons, a lot of drug addiction, just health care. So I guess to us, it's just the whole thing is like an injustice, right? When you look at the history, you kind of see that we're actually have progressed, that it's taken a lot of different groups and different organizing at different times to kind of push us forward. So that's kind of what I'm here for, is just to kind of help with that part. Connect with the everyday person, right? Like, like I really am, like I just never really studied this until I kind of joined the Brown Berets and became interested and started reading and and all the actions and the events that we do. It's amazing because you end up talking to different people, right? And people you wouldn't think share similar interests or that would even care, right? So for us, it's a lot of us, it's an eye opener when we meet people like you guys that are actually out here trying to organize and make something happen. We think that there's really no one like that out there, right? A lot of us out there that just kind of get lost and become the victims, right? I mean, because a lot of we organize against the jailing us all the time, but there is a lot of people that have gone through that really are waiting for some of us to go out there and tell them this stuff, right? So our indigenous history, just our history in general, right? So that's kind of something that the justice that we see, if that makes any sense. Sorry guys, I get nervous. I'm not sure if anybody had any questions so far or...
Tony, wondering, oh, thank you for sharing this far. Wondering if you could give maybe share a little bit about Brown Berets and a bit of the history and who you are. That way, maybe for those folks that know about you all but don't know the full history, can learn a bit more about it.
Ooh, my favorite topic now. Yeah. Well, the Brown Berets, they came out of I guess the walkouts, what they call the blowouts, and it was a student-led organization, fighting for better access and better funding and access to college, right? So that was kind of what started them off, and it's grown since then. A lot of us got older, right? So we kind of we'll deal with more, I don't know, with other issues. But yeah, the beginning was us, the walkouts. It was a student-led organization, um, kind of, with the Black Panthers. It was in that whole era, right? So I guess that was our response. And they did a lot, a lot of times, I don't think it gets told enough, the changes, right? Like right now I'm putting a presentation together and I kind of been going through our history and, kind of the effects it had. And a lot of times people don't realize that, within that 1 year or two of, all that action and all the marching and the walkouts and the sit-ins and, had a big impact, right? So it's like 20% dropout rate to like 90, right? So I kind of like to tell that part a lot because, our main part in this is, I guess, making people feel empowered, that like if they organize, if they volunteer, if they join any group really, that that they can have their voices heard. And so organizations like the Brown Berets, there was other ones out there, right? Like Mayo and a whole bunch, but a lot organizations like that, right? It's like I think their stories are worth telling. Because then it's like something we could fall back on, right? Like when times are hard, like I feel they are right now, right, with everything going on, especially here in Texas. We could kind of get inspired by that, right? Organize in similar ways. So
Thank you so much, Tony. I think that helps, and I think the main reason why we want to invite you on the justice aspect and with to talk about the Brown Berets is because it kind of the connection it makes nowadays with education, right? We're seeing it in Houston, we're seeing it in Austin, and we continue to see how education continues to be attacked, healthcare continues to be attacked, housing, and you keep seeing all these issues, right? I'm wondering if you would like to pose maybe a question or a reflection for the group, Tony, for folks to maybe chime in or share.
Sorry, I had my microphone off. Like to you, right? You know, what do you envision or what do you picture when you think of justice?
If there's someone you would like to maybe ask, Tony.
Oh, actually ask somebody. Oh, I thought it was just a question for the group. All right. Ooh, man, you're making us talk to each other. All right. All right. I guess I would ask that of Anna.
Me. Okay, so you're asking me about justice.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I'm going to go back to it's an idea that is ethical and philosophical, that people are to be treated impartially and fairly, properly. And what I'm speaking about is more or less from the perspective of law, okay? And that then the law has to look at giving everybody an equal chance to be heard, and sometimes to arbitrate, to try to come to terms with the two sides. But what we have experienced, of course, has been injustice. And I think we know what that is in many different arenas and many different ways. And so we've always had to be stronger, smarter, and stay in a step ahead. And sometimes you brush it off your shoulder so that you don't get into a physical fight. But that's been my experience. And again, I'll remind you all, because all of you are young. I'm 79 years old. Okay. So I've experienced a little bit of everything. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. Then after more than 20 years in the educational system there, I was assistant director of elementary schools, but I knew that I would not be able to go beyond that there. So I went to New Mexico to become a school district superintendent. Started in Carlsbad, which is, I guess, about the racist place that I could have picked, because it's very definitely, Texas cowboy mentality. And so you become strong when you're faced with injustices, and you find ways to work with different people and accept all kinds of people because of our own experiences. And so, when I use the word, I was disgusted what happened with Paxton, I also added to that it's almost like giving a license for people to be unethical. And, so it's like saying, okay, we don't expect anything from people that are in high positions. We don't expect more. Any questions?
Would you like to pass it on to someone, Miss Anna? Or maybe like I could ask the question again to someone.
Okay. Well, is there anybody that would like to volunteer? Did I strike a chord with any of you that there's something you want to sort of piggyback on? No? Okay, then I'll jump to Richard.
I need to figure out how to unmute my microphone.
You got it.
when you're talking about justice, the question I guess that I have is, are we talking about justice in general, or are we talking about justice for Native Americans? And if it's that, then what is justice for Native Americans? That's where my confusion arises from.
I think you can answer in any way that you want, from the broad to the specific.
Okay, well, I mean, if we get to the specifics, then with to the audience here is, what is justice for Native Americans? Is it just grant land acknowledgements? Is that justice, or is it something beyond that? So I'll ask the question, and I'll turn my mic off. I'm interested to see what you all have to say.
Thank you, Richard. I do see some hands, and then folks, if it's all right with y'all, because I have 3 hands, let's go with y'all to answer this, and then I'll pass it on to Damaris. Oh, and I don't know if this is the right order, but I do see Al, Alicia, and Tony.
Well, actually, both of the first 2 speakers, Anna and Tony, talked about education. The idea of sort of educating, whatever group is having injustice. I mean, I think this is true of, but how important education about your own history, your own culture, your own development. I'm talking about cultural development. How important that is to give you a sense of self, sense of presence. But I also think, and this is something that we're really facing now as an issue, is education of others about who you are, and there's such a pushback now on education against education in general, against history in general. We don't want to talk about Native history. We don't want to talk about history. We don't want to talk about Black history. In fact, we just don't want to talk about history because, somebody might feel bad. And as a former teacher myself, I think it's important for people to look at themselves, and I don't think it's really going to permanently damage anybody to, either look at their ancestors and what they did, or look at those around them and try to understand them. I mean, it's not going to make somebody feel bad. I think people could survive that, and this whole bogus, talk about snowflakes, this whole bogus idea of fragility is ridiculous and damaging to us as a country, as a culture, as a democracy. Anyway, I've said my part.
Thank you all. Alicia, Tony?
Thank you. I just wanted to say something briefly. During the pandemic, I went back to school to kind of fulfill a dream of a career in law as a paralegal. And I just kind of wanted to say that, like, it's okay to want to kind of resign when injustice continues to happen so frequently, for a brief time. It's important that we collaborate with other groups. So, like, I've joined the DSA out here in Houston. And when excuse me, I'm in the backyard and I've got a dog barking. But I don't feel, reach out to other groups. A lot of other groups have I know we know this isn't anything new. I'm not telling anybody anything different. But I know a lot of other groups feel and struggle with, feel the same and struggle with similar issues. But it's okay to feel when it's okay to feel disheartened when Paxton gets acquitted of 20 plus charges or 16 charges with 4 dismissed or whatever. And I am so thankful for this group because it is really hard sometimes to think, like, after working on the Beto campaign and that falling short, it has been really hard this year to kind of get back up from like even wanting to get back into law. I stopped working in the legal field, and it just this group has given me a little bit of a fire. It's lit a little bit of a fire, but I don't, in terms of the question that was posed earlier to like what is justice for like Indigenous people, and I don't know that we'll ever see it. I don't know that we'll ever see it in our lifetime, but we can continue to fight for it. And that's a systemic issue. I don't have any more. I apologize for the rambling. It's okay to, I just wanted to say that it's okay to take a beat. If you are feeling a little disheartened, but don't let it be for too long, because we need y'all at the end of the day.
Hello, go ahead and go.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. No, I was just gonna actually just agree with the, the teaching of our history type stuff, right? Like, like every time we hold a youth leadership or youth conference, and you start telling them their stories, I mean, you just see that interest rise up. Their eyes, they like turn on, instantly. So it's something that's missing. It is an empowering thing, right? I think that's why it's kind of been attacked, right? Like, I feel like it's always been attacked, right? So yeah, definitely that. I think that's like foundational right there, the education. And also the keep going, absolutely right. I kind of like to look at things as a movement. So not necessarily that everything's going to happen in my life, my time, or that I'm going to get everything done. It's like a contribution, right? So like a direction we're all headed, that we want to head in. So I guess that's how I look at it. And that's what keeps me going, knowing that it was all these little pieces that accumulated to us being able to do what we can do now, right? Because we might not have been able to do this 30 years ago, but they did their fighting and now we're able to organize in this way. And if we do our fighting, then, that's growth, right? So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you, folks, for being vulnerable on this. I think there's layers on it, right? And I thank you all for kind of going through some of them and unraveling that. The safe space require a brave space, but before that, we require a space. So I think we're creating the space here, right? And we're building and making it for ourselves. So thank you all for sharing and being here. I will pass it down now to Damaris, and I invite you all to join me in taking a deep breath. All right, Damaris, all yours.
Thank you, Rojo. Thank you, everybody, for opening a space to us. I am gonna share a little bit about myself. My name is Damaris Gonzalez, and I live in Houston. I was born in Mexico back in 1983, Mexico City. I migrated with my mom and my 2 sisters in 1996. Being an immigrant in this country at an early age is really difficult, because not only did I have to face with a lot of challenges because of my culture, the way that I look, a lot of discrimination from my own people. When I think about justice, I go back to when I was little and growing up in a very religious, family and household. I remember they always told us, see justice as a divine action, right? Let everything fall in the hands of God, and He'll do justice to you if others do wrong to you. You're supposed to turn your cheek if someone slaps you. And so I always saw justice as a divine act, but I never saw justice in my life. I was at an early age, I faced a lot of discrimination when we migrated to Houston. I remember taking my sisters to a grocery store with my mom, and the person that was at the counter always referred to me as Maria, even though he didn't know my name. This was a very, white, complex person. And when I asked my mom, why is he calling me Maria every time we come to the store? My mom said, well, in Mexico, Maria's, a person that's called Maria is basically they're calling them Indians. And he's just seeing you as an Indian woman. And my mom started to explain to me that in Mexico, there is a lot of racism, discrimination amongst within our communities, right? And so facing that challenge of coming here and not finding what Rojo mentioned right now, a safe space for us, it was really hard. And then, the fact that you're growing in a space where you don't know what your future is going to look like. I try to be a good student because in my family it was required that you did good in school because you will have a great future. But once I graduated from high school, I was awarded a scholarship to go to Texas A&M, and my dreams to become a teacher, I saw like an open door to a successful future. But before I even started college, I was declined of the scholarship because of my immigration status. And that created a lot of challenges for me again, because I was working a part-time job. I was not making enough. My father and my mother, as undocumented people, were also not making enough. And I had to find, financial aid with other opportunities, and finally, enroll in community college. But I saw, I was growing up in a system, but I really didn't understood why there were not a lot of opportunities for us, why we were always being singled out, discriminated, left out in a sense. And then when DACA became implemented in 2012, I was able to learn about the movement through United We Dream, and I started to realize and wake up, right? What they call wake up, and finally see that there was no justice in the immigration system, right? That our families will always be persecuted, that we will always be discriminated against for the lack of a document, that my humanity was always going to be in jeopardy, and I will always continue to fight to belong in a place that I call home, because I grew up here in Houston. I was only 11 years when we migrated, and I don't remember a lot about my home country, but I always been here in Houston, and being in a state that is always against my community, because I feel like every time there is something that will attack us, that will continue to deport our families. My brother was deported back in 2009 because of a thing that he didn't commit, and the police didn't even give him a chance to really do any kind of investigation. They just assumed him guilty right from the start, and they deported him a year after he was in county jail. And it was really hard because he had kids here and his wife was here, and So my nephews grew up without a father. We always felt really hopeless because we couldn't do anything. And I just, I started to realize that there was never going to be justice for us. That the system was created to oppress us, and I don't know if we will always ever see justice, right? But I think that it's a continuous fight that we have to face every day. As soon as we wake up, like today, I was putting gas in my tank, and there was this white man. He was walking, towards the gas station, and all of a sudden he turns around and spits at me. And luckily I was able to move out of the way, but I called my husband and I was like, hey, there was just a guy and he just spit at me for no reason. And he's like, well, this is something that you're gonna see every day. Like this is something that people will do because of how you look, or because of your race. And so I started to think, this is something that I've been fighting or struggling with my entire life. And I always felt guilty because I always thought that I was in a country that I didn't belong, and maybe that I was doing something wrong. But then, we didn't, thinking about, we came here to look for better opportunities and a better future that we didn't have back home. And thinking about, many immigrant families that are here with the same dreams and hopes, and not knowing that instead of coming to a place where you're going to see a lot of success, you're going to find a place that doesn't welcome you and is hateful towards you. And that is extremely sad. So I started organizing with United We Dream back in 2017 because I wanted to make change. I started knocking on doors. I think I was their, what they call me, their star canvasser, volunteer canvasser, because I was there from Monday through Saturday, knocking on doors, making space after work to make sure that I was, letting people know the importance of going out to vote and change the way that Harris County was treating our families. We are one of the counties that has the highest number of deportations, and many of them because people are arrested for minor offenses, such like driving without a license, not having an ID. We have ICE inside the jail, and so we're never going to see justice until we start like fighting back, coming together and fighting back. I feel like this is an issue that's not going to stop, and we try every day to do it, but one person cannot do it alone. What we say, a text organizing project, right? We got to build that political power and build that people power so that we can push those that are empowered to do the things that our community needs, right? So that people can live a dignified life. And I hope that in the future I get to see that. I hope that all those actions, all those trips that we took to Washington, D.C. in a bus with more than 100 immigrant youth. There are those actions in Austin against us before, that all those petitions we have community sign, and all of our efforts sometime will come to give us that that future, right, for our families, for our children, because we don't want our children to live in a world that is hateful, that is full of discrimination, racism, hate. And I hope that we find justice, because who knows what justice is right now. I don't think we know that we've seen that or we felt justice in our lives at one point. But I do hope that one day, we'll get that justice that we deserve, and that justice that we want for our kids. And sometimes I think about, my grandparents when they passed away when I migrated here, like 5 years, my grandmother after I migrated, and my aunt and my grandfather a year after. And I think, will they be looking down on me and saying, they're proud of what I've been doing? Are they with me every time that I do something? Because I always take them with me every time I go somewhere and I do something, they're always with me. And I just, I'm in this movement because I want to make a change. And maybe I don't know what justice is right now, but I do hope that one day I will feel it. And I think that's it for me, Rojo.
Thank you, Damaris. And I wonder if maybe like we can go ahead and give it a clap for Damaris and Tony for being our speakers this evening. Thank you both so much. Wondering if maybe it's okay with you, Damaris, if folks have any questions, to ask, just like with Tony, maybe some space for resonation, like if you resonate with something, you feel free to put it on the comments or maybe share out loud, or any questions or thoughts you have. Oh, and I did see your hand earlier, Diana.
Yeah, when I hear everyone speaking now, I tend to take, because I was forced to always sit in the back of the room, so I tend to be quiet. That's what they have taught me in the white world. And even my own people, like she said, has discriminated against me because I didn't quite fit in. But what I wanted to share was the AIM movement. I did speak personally with Russell Means and the three leaders, Russell Means and the other two. When they came to Haskell Indian, now it's university, but at that time it was the junior college. He was there to get everybody, rile them up, and get them to go to the Dakotas where it was freezing. And most of those youngsters that were anywhere from 17 to 25, it took over half the campus, and he visited other campuses. But the one there in Kansas, in Lawrence, Kansas, was the last campus he visited. So I saw many of my classmates leave to go support Russell Means. The clarinet player in the band, I'm pretty sure they said he had a weapon and he left playing his clarinet. He never came back. So what I see is, what I'm saying is that we have to stand firm. We have to be seen in order for them to say, I can't, when we're being seen, they can't ignore us. And even though they have beaten me, so my body is damaged, I still get up and I stand there and face them even when they have knocked me down. So we have to be seen. And this is why I joined the organization, to be seen. I know that I can't make a big splash, but it bugs the hell out of them when they have to see us and they don't want to recognize us. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dan. And I hope to see you at the event at UTA, to accomplish our year recognition of the land acknowledgement. I know earlier, Richard, this kind of goes on that too, alluded to, right? What is justice for Native American Indigenous people? And I think, as y'all can see a little bit with our speakers, I wanted to make sure that we understand that intersectionality and we live it, right? So bringing them in, we start seeing how justice, talking about justice is talking about injustice. And then particularly when it comes to the issues, the intersectionality with the immigration fight that falls with the indigenous fight, the Native American fight. And we see that it repeats, right? It repeats. And Diana even showed us here that we need to be seen. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Maris with United We Dream, they had the campaign Undocumented and Unafraid, Sin Papeles y Sin Miedo, to bring awareness to it, right? To no longer make taboo the fact that, yeah, like this is the land that we have created, these borders, and we continue to oversee power over it. Any other folks that would like to share comments on it? And then Damaris, or any questions maybe, or comments that you would like to pose for the group to discuss?
No, I just think that something that resonated with me is public education, because also in the state of Texas, they try many times to take public education away from undocumented kids. And at the same time, what Diana mentioned, like we join organizations to be seen, because if we always we don't speak up because of fear, but when we join and we know that there's people that have our backs, we tend to lose that fear and we tend to speak up and we tend to be seen, right? People can see us. We're visible. We're no longer in the shadows. And I think that's something that resonated with me. That's what I joined United We Dream, because I was tired of all the things that we were going through. And, you know, and also I feel like, you know about this, but we went to the trip to Alabama with top members. We took a pilgrimage to Alabama, and we saw, you know, we learned a little bit more about the history, about how indigenous peoples were taken away from their land, how this country was based on slavery and on a lot of horrible things, right? So I just, you know, sometimes it's going to take all of us, right, to really achieve something, a change for our families. And you know, now with Paxton's impeach, I confronted Paxton back in 2017 when he was doing campaigning here in Houston, and I asked him why he wanted to deport our families, and he just will tell us that DACA was illegal, right? On quotes, that DACA was illegal and against the Constitution of the United States and all of those things. But you know, it really hurts me to see that he's gonna continue to get away with a lot of things, and we're never gonna see an end to all of those attacks that we continue to see from Ken Paxton. I don't think this is the end. I think probably get worse with him winning this case now, but you know, we gotta continue to push back again against him.
Thank you, Damaris. And I do see a few hands if you all want to go for it. I don't know if Diana wants to share anything else. And I see Kristen and Gracie.
Thank you, Rojo, and thank you, Damaris. So I have a question for everyone that's here tonight regarding being seen. So at the El Paso convention, we've talked about asking the Texas Democratic Party to let us do a land acknowledgement. And I was talking a little bit with Rojo about what we could do to be seen at the convention. What I've seen in the past, for example, like the Democratic Women's Table, you can get a lanyard, and your lanyard says like Democratic Women, and they give you this nice case or whatever to put your pass in or whatever. And so I was thinking maybe another goal we should have specifically for the convention would be to have a table where we can pass out either the necklace type lanyard that you know says IPC, or something that we could put on a lanyard. So say if they're wearing the Democratic's women's lanyard, but they could add something to it that says that they're with the Indigenous Peoples Caucus, or if you want to identify yourself as a tribal member or an ally. But something that, because I feel like a lot of the other groups are seen, and at the conventions, I noticed how, well, number one, there's a lot of intersection between the groups. And so I think a lot of our members are also in other rooms at the same time. But I think it would help raise awareness of just how many of us there really are if we can find a way to be seen. So I want to ask, besides doing something like having a table and having a lanyard or a land acknowledgement, is there any ideas that you guys might have that's either in the education or how to be seen to at least raise awareness within our party? What would you like to see at the convention from our group? And so I think we have a few hands. There's Anna Perez, Clayton, and Leisha Abbey. And Diana, your hand is still up, but I'm not sure if that's from before. Anna?
Okay, of course I moved rooms, but to be seen, it has to be in a number of ways. When you're talking about a lanyard, it would be really good, and it's probably something we'd need to do ourselves, is to design one that is powerful, that is with a native design. The other thing would be if we had t-shirts also. But with the Democratic Party, it's to be a part of the program and to be scheduled for a caucus when it's not in conflict with so many others that we may be involved in. For example, because I'm active in the Tejano Democrats here in El Paso, lots of times, you know, those caucuses are put, you know, against each other. And so if you have a voice in being able to say when we want that caucus or how that can be scheduled when it's not so much in conflict. And I think just by looking at the program, you should be able to tell when would be the most ideal time, okay? And I think early on, I think I told y'all one of the first times that I attended is that what I've seen happen in the past is that we're never given a true Native American individuals that are going to be represented at the national convention. What the Texas Democratic Party has done repeatedly, and I've seen it and I've even voiced about it and tried to fight it, but I was just a lone ranger, is that they say, okay, well, this Black Democrat is going to represent Native American, or this one that was selected for this is also going to represent. And so it's like a double representation without us having the voice of who that should be, and that a select percentage and number is actually given to us, not taken by the state Democratic Party for them to say, okay, this person is going to be doing it, and they're representing both, or maybe they're representing 3 different groups, who knows? But to me, that's the strongest part, that it really needs to come from the caucus and the decision be made, and that percentage be a table, yes, and education. And I wouldn't use acronyms. You need to spell out indigenous peoples, because not everyone is familiar with acronyms. And so, yes, have a table, have a big sign that, and photos, again, always can speak a lot of, or say a lot. Posters. So those are my suggestions off the top of my head right now. Okay.
Thank you. Clayton?
Okay, a couple of interesting things I want to pass on. One, my late significant other was very big into doing promotional products, and we have half of them have been disposed of already, but I probably can find a whole bunch of catalogs on things like pens, pins, shirts, lanyards, any of those. I could probably find those catalogs, and then we could get with a supplier to get those. One thing I would think of to make us stand out would be, I've seen the lanyards from past conventions, and they seem to be like a solid color with just the text on it. We want to be more colorful, I guess the term I want to use would be. You know, something that catches people's attention. Not just a bland single color, which is just going to blend in with everyone else. Same on like pins. We want it to be, we want to be visible, so it wants to be colorful. I guess I'm sorry to keep using that word. That's the best word I can use. But that's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Clayton. Leisha?
Thank you, Kristen. We can do all of that. What Anna and Clayton are talking about. If we did almost like a guerrilla style, if we had like a guerrilla style presence, and what I mean by that is like when I was working for the Houston Press and we were trying to promote particular events, you know, sometimes we would get our street team involved, and there is so much information that we need to get out to people that putting them on pamphlets and flyers and having a table and long discussions is going to cost us time and money. And if we did like buttons with a QR code or something on them and just start throwing those things out like candy, people can attach them to their lanyards. We can make them distinguishable with the color scheme that we choose. Oh, this is getting me really excited. I'm getting chills. But I don't know whether or not they charge you for a table, but I know they're going to charge you for t-shirts. I know they're going to charge you for literature and collateral and all that. And if we're looking for, I mean, because we're still vying for representation from the Texas Democrats, if I'm not mistaken. So buttons, they're cheap. We can put a QR code on them that will direct them to either an app or a website using their cell phones. We can spell out as much as we want. We can use as many acronyms as we want. We can set it up with Mobilize so people know when we have our meetings, how they can donate. We can collect email addresses that way, phone numbers. That's kind of my suggestion.
I love all that. So right now the Texas Democratic Party is supplying us with some free support. We have access to Mobilize and Van. So we will need to start reaching out to our networks, but also to who we can find in the Democratic database to start recruiting delegates to go. So once we can get our information together, we'll need to basically ask our members to like share that with their orbits. But yeah, QR code, I figured out a way to do QR codes for free in Google Sheets using Google Code. So I think that's a great idea to put that on a button and with Indigenous Peoples Caucus, like ally spelled out, because then you can give that to anyone who's willing to wear it. I really like those ideas for pushing content. Rojo, you have your hand up.
Yes, just closing us out, just to close on time, and then we can continue staying. We still have like the discussion after if folks want to still know the ins and outs. But thank you so much again for our speakers. Just want to kind of lift you on that and kind of go back, I guess, circle with my response towards like some of the question at the beginning with justice for Native American Indigenous people, right? I think the biggest thing to kind of keep you, Kristen, are we able to do, hold on, I'm trying to do the sound. Okay, like Diana, are you able? Oh, there you go. Thank you so much. All right. Yes. So in a way, we are doing this caucus, folks, because in the last convention, we attended mostly to see Beto, right? A lot of folks attended to see Beto and the excitement of what's going on, the new election for who's going to be the chair of the Texas Democratic Party. But then we started seeing how with the Indigenous People Caucus, there was the need for the direction. And this being our third meeting, in the convention, our third convention, we have the opportunity to get our seat at the table and to not only acknowledge, but bring the platform. And like I said to you all, the Texas Democratic Party has never stated land back in any way. And land back goes beyond the land that we're getting back, but the ways in which we are, the ways in which we acknowledge it, and the ways in which we repair it. So yes, immigration justice is indigenous, justice. So we're connecting all these things, economic justice. And I believe that particularly with the reservations and the connections that we're creating now, we reached out for the Solar for All grant. It was a bit too late, but apparently the federal government did reach out to them directly. For some of you that didn't know, it was a grant that was offered for recognized tribes. We believe that in this next year, we're going to be doing education events in different counties, particularly focusing on those areas with a lot of Democrats for the same reason, so that we can be getting recognized and then we can start fighting for justice for Indigenous Native American people, but eventually winning seats, right? I believe that what we ultimately want within the Democratic Party is to be able to elect candidates, support them throughout this process, and for them to come through here. I don't think we'll be able to get to a lot of justice on this, right? But this will be our form to at least be able to carve that space for us and start winning some of that in our local level. Damaris, Tony, anything you would like to share with us before you close down and we close down the meeting?
No, just thank you so much for opening the space to us and being open to hear our stories and or share on justice. So grateful for the space.
Yeah, same here, Rojo. Just thank you for having me here, and I look forward to helping out. So see what we can do.
Awesome. If you want to share your information, feel free on the chat. And if not, you can always share it with us and we'll pass it down to folks. But we do have our Slack and folks can also just check your conversations there as well. With that, I will pass it to Kristen to see if there's any other conversation or topics to cover.
Thank you, Rojo. Let me tell you guys of our next date, so you have that in mind.
Well, we did want to share about the bylaws. So folks, as you know, we are about to finalize the bylaws, and that is going to be happening our bi-monthly meetings. If folks want to be part of writing the rules of the IPC, that will be able to write the rules of the Democratic Party, we need to state that those initial bricks. With the bylaws committee is going great so far because we're able to kind of analyze what's needed, looking to finish this year so that we can start next year with the educational events. And like I said, our first gathering. Our intention is to try to have one every month, building towards El Paso. That way folks can have as many opportunities to be together, at least hybrid. But yeah. And the next bylaws meeting, if I'm not mistaken, Kristen, is this Friday, correct? Thank you, General. Hey, Martin, welcome in. And perfect for closing.
Thank you, guys.
Let me double check the bylaws date for you. Friday, so September 22nd. And then October 15th is the next general meeting.
Thank you all so much. And again, if you have a speaker, you can get with Martin on the Slack to then send maybe any recommendation. In fact, Damaris sent me already a recommendation for our next speaker on next month. Our topic will be proud and orgullo. And then the month after will be healing, right? For November. So if you want to join bylaws, we have those going on. After we finalize those, we're hoping to then open the platform committee and the event committee. So we'll keep growing. We'll keep growing, I'm sure. All right. Anything else, or anyone else? Clayton, before we close down?
Nope, nothing more from me.
I have a question for the group, because I haven't, I mean, it's been a couple of years now, but I haven't been as involved in Texas with the Democratic Party. I know back in Virginia, where we had many of the same problems we've discussed tonight, unfortunately, particularly when the Republicans were in charge. Um, the whenever you put something together, it was important to have the union bug on it. Is that as important here? Or, I mean, I know that, when you go to conventions, it is. Okay. It's hard to do when you're in a right to work state. Same thing in Virginia.
I would think it certainly couldn't hurt to
Oh, no,
have it.
Yeah, you want to build allyship, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about, and that's what, that's the reason that becomes important is, you don't want to thumb your nose or be perceived at thumbing your nose at anybody who could certainly support you.
Unions plugging UAW. We're in, y'all. We're in. So it seems like this is gonna go well. We have a few others going on around the country, and actually, let me just highlight what we're doing with labor, y'all. It's picking up, and we gotta keep applying pressure to this president if we want to get something done. So, yeah.
Yeah, now that you're speaking,
Go ahead, Martin.
now I was going to say, now that Rocco was speaking about unions, last weekend we did I was part of that protest. We had that union protest there at Rivershon Park with Saga, with Saga, in regards to the Actors Guilds and all them. So I know they're doing it also. They did it this week in Los Angeles. After they left here, they went to Los Angeles and continued on the strike. That is very important. We need to understand what they want. They want money for all this streaming that's going on. When we get Netflix, we get Disney, we get all these other all these channels, all these people, all these actors are not getting any of that money. All those research, they're not getting none of that money. So that's why they're on strike at the moment. So I think maybe what we need to do is stop subscribing to all these networks, because the only people who are getting money out of all that, everything that we're doing, is the top people. None of the cameramen, none of the actors, none of the writers, nobody's getting any of that money. So maybe that's something we need to think about.
It's a good idea, Martin. How did the protest go, Martin?
It went pretty good. We had a lot of speakers there. We had some of our local state reps show up also, and some of our candidates show up, and we had a couple of the actual actors who actually live in the DFW area. So they were also there. So no, it was pretty good. It was we started at 9, we finished at about 11:30. It was pretty good. And then this weekend, we had Texas Latino Pride at Rivershon Park, and that was pretty good success also. And as a board member of Stonewall, we were also part of the sponsorship of Texas Latino Pride. And then today we had Dallas in Pride, which was we had another parade, and so we had a pretty good crowd today also. So yeah, I've been busy all day long today and yesterday. this whole weekend.
Well, it's good to hear you keeping busy, Martin. I had a quick question for Anna before you, before we end the call. Since we're going to be in El Paso for the convention, would it be possible to give us some recommendations for Native American artwork that we could potentially use for either the lanyards or buttons or any of the like poster type stuff?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, if you want to send us some contacts, then we can maybe try to put a list together of like what items we might need artwork for. And go ahead, were you going to say something?
Yes, one of the things we do here with the Isleta del Sur Pueblo is that we often will involve students to submit for whether it be t-shirt designs or, you know, different things that we might need. And that way you're involving students and their tribal members.
Okay, that's a
And so
great idea.
Yes, I love that.
That might be a way to go. That's through our empowerment department that we call it. And if you let me double check as to who you need to get in touch with directly. But like right now for Drug-Free Month, they just finished the competition for the t-shirt designs by students. And they usually do it by, you know, by age groups, the younger ones and then the older ones that are up to age 18. And so that's what I would recommend, you know, that we go that route for coming up with designs.
Interesting. So how can we approach that? Especially we want to do it for the convention. How can we approach that for it? Because I know schools can get political.
Well, it's not the schools that we involve. We involve the tribal members, and we do have our own, you know, email that goes out to all the parents and everybody and announces, you know, competitions and things of that nature for all of the tribal members and the tribal children. And so that's why I said it's usually handled through one of our departments. So I will get the contact person, you know, for you. And then that way you could talk one-on-one and see what y'all can work out.
That'd be great, especially for, you know, creating almost like the shirts for next year. Having, you know, like, I know it's going to be a lot of them. And the goal is that these educational events almost become a rally, right? At every single university. We believe that with NASA and having the land acknowledgement at UTA, we need to then expand that. And we need to get it at, you know, UTSA, UT Tyler, UT San Angelo, I think we got too, right? And then check other universities, because the goal then is go to El Paso, make it a convention, also a space where we get to all gather, and that is something that we also would love to kind of like talk farther with you in the future. Having a convention that is adjacent to the Democratic Convention for the intentions, right, of building power of Native American, indigenous people across Texas.
Sounds good.
Yes, Diana, thank you so much for sending on the chat. Perfect. Folks, I will be heading to dinner now. Lovely seeing you tonight, like every other night. And I'll see you next month. We do need to get more speakers, so send your recommendations to Martin, our event coordinator. If y'all have any other updates on legislation and what's going on, you know, you can always connect to Taylor and then update us on the Slack. I'm gonna be creating a TikTok about Paxton, so I'll share it with y'all to see how that goes. All right, y'all. Have a good evening.
Okay. Have a good one, Rojo. Thank you for opening today.
Bye, everyone. Or sorry,
we're
Martin.
done?
Good evening.
Okay, I guess we're done.